Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where it is Halloween. It is Halloween today, yes. And Roger and myself are celebrating Halloween, not as the common peasants do, dressing in ridiculous, silly outfits, no. We are far too classy for such shenanigans, no. We are celebrating Halloween today by talking about a classic of literature. Varney the Vampire, or The Feast of Blood. Yes, Varney the Vampire, or The Feast of Blood. That's Varney there. Terrifying, isn't he? Yes, Varney the Vampire, the famous Penny Dreadful from Victorian England, which is now available in two big gigantic volumes, fully illustrated, from Pulp Lit Productions. 2 volumes chronicling the adventures of Varney the Vampire, everyone's favorite vampire, Varney. So Varney the Vampire arrived on the scene in 1845 and crept around through 1847. There were lots and lots of episodes of Varney. You see, Varney was what was one time known as a penny dreadful. A penny dreadful, which was a little pamphlet of about 18 or 20 pages. And they came out weekly, serializing the stories of various characters, including Varney the Vampire. Varney the Vampire was actually a very famous penny dreadful, perhaps the most famous penny dreadful of all, Varney the Vampire. And it was serialized for a while. In fact, once you put it into book form, it's sort of gigantic. Over 666,000 words long. So that's a lot of Adventures of Varney, yes. Now, who wrote this titanic tale of terror? Well, we don't really know, but it could have been James Malcolm Rymer, or it could have been Thomas Becket Prest, or it could have been both of them, or it could have been neither of them. Who knows? No one signed their work for some reason, I guess, on these old penny dreadfuls, because it's a mystery. Perhaps Varney himself told the tale. Who knows? So, because of the way they came out, and because these stories, the authors were paid for these stories by the line. By the line they were paid. So, as you can imagine, they tended to go on a bit. The prose was a bit purple. So, not exactly, I don't know, the finest writing in the world, if you're going to nitpick, but it's certainly compelling. I've certainly found it so. So Varney the Vampire. This tells many different stories of Varney, actually. So it's often been published as a novel, but it's not really a novel. It's more like the Victorian version of a television show, an episodic, serialized television show that just went on and on and on. Sort of like, a vampire soap opera. Certainly, the storyline changes quite a bit as you go along with the continuing adventures of Varney. It starts off telling one story, ends up telling another story, veers into another story after that. So it kind of goes on. Characters are introduced. Characters are just plain forgotten about. Situations are introduced. Payoffs never arrive. Sometimes the payoffs arrive spectacularly. You just never know. It's unpredictable, Varney the Vampire and stories of this sort in the Penny Dreadfuls. It must have been tough writing a Penny Dreadful. You can't keep track of what happened, 20 issues ago. That was 20 issues ago. Who knows what happened? You might have a dim recollection. So, the stories don't always hold up perfectly well. But I'll tell you one thing, this Varney, he's some character. A very important vampire character. You may be wondering what the prose is like in this volume. Well, it's epic, let me tell you. Let me read just a bit of Varney. You see, Varney in the beginning of this story is pestering the Bannerworths family. The Bannerworths. Henry Bannerworth, his sister, Flora Bannerworth, the beautiful Flora. He has a brother whose name I forget, and so do they. And they used to be rich, but Henry's father was a real loser and lost all his money through sheer stupidity. And so now they don't have much cash, but perhaps they have a treasure hidden somewhere in their home. Certainly Varney's very interested. Varney is a practical vampire and always wants the cash. So, is he here for money that might be hidden away in Bannerworth Hall? Or is he here for the beautiful Flora and her blood? Or both? You have to read the story to find out, and you might find out. So, Varney has a very dramatic entrance. Flora is lying in her bed, the beautiful Flora, during a storm. She looks towards the window. There's a figure there. A mysterious figure in the window. Who could it be? Who could it be? A tall figure, standing on the ledge immediately outside the long window. It is its fingernails upon the glass that produces the sound, so like hail. Now that the hail has ceased, intense fear paralyzes the limbs of the beautiful girl. That one shriek is all she can utter, with hand clasped, a face of marble, a heart beating so wildly in her bosom that each moment it seems as if it would break its confines. Eyes distended and fixed upon the window, she waits, frozen with horror. The pattering and clattering of the nails continue. No word is spoken, and now she fancies she can trace the darker form of that figure against the window. And she can see the long arms moving to and fro, feeling for some mode of entrance. What strange light is that which now gradually creeps up into the air, red and terrible? Brighter and brighter it grows. The lightning has set fire to a mill, and the reflection of the rapidly consuming building falls upon the long window. There can be no mistake. The figure is there, still feeling for an entrance, and clattering against the glass with its long nails that appear as if growth of many years had been untouched. She tries to scream again, but a choking sensation comes over her, and she cannot. It is too dreadful. She tries to move. Each limb seems weighed down by tons of lead. She can but, in a hoarse, faint whisper, cry, "Help! Help! Help! Help!" There are literally 4 helps written here, and that one word she repeats like a person in a dream. The red glare of the fire continues. It throws up the gaunt figure in hideous relief against the long window. It shows, too, upon the one portrait there that is in the chamber, and the portrait appears to fix its eyes upon the attempting intruder, while the flickering light from the fire makes it look fearfully lifelike. A small pane of glass is broken, and the form from without introduces a long, gaunt hand, which seems utterly destitute of flesh. The fastening is removed, and one half of the window, which opens like folding doors, is swung open upon its hinges. And yet now she could not scream. She could not move. "Help! Help! Help!" was all she could say. But oh, that look of terror that sat upon her face. It was dreadful. A look to haunt the memory for a lifetime. A look to obtrude itself upon the happiest moments and turn them to bitterness. The figure turns half round, and the light falls upon its face. It is perfectly white, perfectly bloodless. The eyes look like polished tin. The lips are drawn back, and the principal feature next to those dreadful eyes is its teeth. the fearful-looking teeth projecting like those of some wild animal, hideously, glaringly white and fang-like. That is our introduction to Varney. And then Varney attacks the poor woman, and you can see it in this hideously lifelike illustration. So Varney is full of these wonderful illustrations all throughout this magnificent volume. Of course, it's in double columns because this damn thing is so damn long. And extraordinarily entertaining and important. You know, as far as vampire fiction goes, this had a lot of firsts. It's the first time a vampire was ever depicted with fangs. Rather terrifying, wouldn't you say? It's also the first time where we have a sympathetic vampire, yes. Over time in this story, you begin to sympathize with poor Varney. You see, he is the victim of circumstance, mostly, and he doesn't want to be a vampire, the poor fellow. He often tries to stop becoming a vampire by finding a woman who will love him for himself, and tries to marry one woman after another, except every marriage is interrupted by his arch foe, Admiral Bell. Admiral Bell. He's an admiral. Admiral Bell. And the Admiral's comic sidekick, Jack. Jack what? I can't forget Jack's last name. What was it? Jack Pringle. It was Pringle. That bastard, Jack Pringle. Every time Varney's on the cusp of release from his vampiric affliction, up comes this dirty bastard, Jack Pringle, and Admiral Bell. I could barely speak. Admiral Bell, that's the guy who first shows up at the Bannerworth's place. This is a very long and convoluted story. I myself have not finished it yet. I am only about a quarter of the way through, but already it's had a lot of interesting things in this book. First of all, it's very entertaining. I didn't think it would be. I heard horror stories about how awful the writing was, how plodding the plot was, how repetitive it is, and it is repetitive. And yes, the writers, whoever they were, who wrote this, used 1,000 words when one would do. You know, they were writing by the line. They had to flower it up. But very entertaining. And the one truly great character in this is Varney the vampire. We definitely want more Varney in this story because he's really interesting. Some of the other characters, not so much. But a tremendously exciting tale. I'll probably be reading it for a while because there's just so damn much of it. But it's thrilling, Varney the vampire. I will continue to read Varney as I read other things. I have lots of other things to read. You know, I have lots of things to read. But Varney, I will continue to read. Now, unfortunately, one thing I would have liked in this edition is to know where the breaks were between the different pamphlets. It would be interesting to know where one pamphlet ended and another one began, so you could follow along weekly if you wanted to, but at least know where one started and the next begun. This was also published in a Dover edition, which I have not seen. I've only seen this, and I have it on a Kindle version, but neither of these versions tell you, you know, where one starts and the next begins as far as how it was originally published in pamphlet form. That would be good, but a minor quibble. So that's all I have to say today for Varney the Vampire on my Halloween special. Roger and I are going to continue to celebrate throughout the day. And I hope you have a fantastic Halloween.